We've already had a look at some small towns that are rarely visited because of their creepy nature, so now it's time to have a look at some towns that were completely deserted for one reason or another. Whether the population left immediately or were slowly pushed out of these areas, what they left behind was a creepy location that most people tend to avoid. So that's what we're going to be having a look at today. So here are the 10 creepiest ghost towns in the world. Number 1. Port Arthur, Tasmania. Port Arthur was established as a British penal colony in 1833, as it was believed that the island would be inescapable, as it had a unique geography that allowed guard towers to have a full view of the prisons. Compared to Alcatraz, the water around the prison were supposedly full of deadly sharks that would kill any attempted escapees. Violent criminals who were repeat offenders were sent here, and would often be physically beaten and forced to earn their meals through good behavior. In other parts of the penal colony, prisoners were forced to stay silent with hoods over their head while in solitary confinement. This was supposed to force prisoners to think about what they had done, but in the end, this treatment caused most of the prisoners to develop severe mental illness. Ultimately, prisoners would kill guards or their cellmates just so that they could receive the death penalty. The island also had its own cemetery with over 1,100 bodies buried in unmarked mass graves. The prisons were shut down in 1877 and the colony became residential land and a tourist destination. Unfortunately, the island had one final tragedy in 1996, when a 25-year-old man committed one of the worst mass shootings in Australia's history. The man murdered 35 people and injured 23. He is currently serving 35 life sentences in prison. This island remains open to tourists and they hold paranormal tours in the remains of the empty buildings. Number 2. Kolmanskop, Namibia. In 1908, a railway worker was clearing sands from the tracks in a desolate region of West Africa when he found a peculiar stone and brought it to his inspector. The stone was discovered to be a diamond, and soon there was a frantic effort to set claims and begin prospecting. It was soon discovered that there were hundreds of diamonds in this area, and this resulted in a rich boomtown springing up in the area almost overnight. The diamonds were so plentiful here that the site provided 12% of the total diamonds in the world at the time. This area was so prosperous that when German miners moved in, they built beautiful homes and had so much water shipped in by railway that the houses were surrounded by lush gardens and magnificent lawns. The town quickly added a hospital, a casino, a post office, and even an opera house, where they brought in actors and performers from all over the world. Sadly, the boom ended after the depletion of the diamonds and following the First World War. Adding to this, in 1928, the largest diamond deposit in the world was discovered 270 kilometers south of Kolmanskop, and the town was abandoned. It now has a haunting atmosphere and is quite creepy to visit. Many visitors claim to have paranormal experiences when visiting the town. Number 3. Underground Seattle, Washington. The city of Seattle, Washington hides a secret ghost town 35 feet underground. This was the original city built at sea level in the 1880s. Because of its level of construction and the plumbing of this early city, it would often cause toilets to flush backwards during high tides and cause constant problems. In 1889, the city burned as a result of an accidental glue fire, and because the lumber town was made entirely of wood, 25 city blocks succumbed to the blaze. Following this, the areas were rebuilt, but the new buildings were built out of stone and iron. During construction, at least 17 men fell to their deaths. Some businesses continued to operate both levels, while other more unsavory groups continued only underground, such as opium dealers, gangsters, and prostitutes. Finally, in 1907, the bubonic plague hit, and as a result, city officials sealed and closed the underground. This hidden city wouldn't be rediscovered until the 1960s and is now protected as a historic district. It is a haunting reminder of the deadly diseases and violent crimes that once plagued the city. Number 4. Decourcy Island and the Brother 12 Cult. This 460-acre island is located just southeast of Nanaimo in British Columbia. This was the location of the mysterious Brother 12 cult during the 1920s. The founder of the cult was Edward Arthur Wilson of Birmingham, England. As a child, he claimed to have been visited by angels, and later in life, following years of religious studies, he would claim to be directed by a wise deity to form his own religion. Edward eventually began writing channeled messages and formed the Aquarian Foundation. He swindled his followers for large amounts of money, supposedly in order to establish a self-sustaining utopian community on Decourcy Island. Many of his wealthy followers and donors moved to the island only to be forced into hard labor under the dictatorship of Edward and his sadistic mistress, SanZhi. Physical abuse was rampant, and one of the men who was locked in a cellar finally escaped to Nanaimo in a rowboat and told authorities of the abuses taking place. Charges were brought against Brother 12 by his followers, but he and Madame Zed managed to escape, leaving a path of destruction, even blowing up the cult's prized boat with dynamite as they fled. Brother 12 had been exchanging the wealth of his donors with gold coins and is said to have taken them with him when he left the island. The value of these coins is said to be around $6 million today. It is believed that he faked his own death in Switzerland, and his death certificate was filled out by a still loyal cult member. This island has a complex past, and the buildings and farms of this failed utopia remain today. Although since the island was sold in 2017, it has been rebranded as an off-the-grid getaway vacation spot, avoiding any mention of its dark and occult past. Number 5. Picher, Oklahoma. Founded in 1920 with a population of nearly 10,000 people, this quaint town was located just off Route 66 and was a center for lead and zinc mining. Picher provided half of the lead used to make bullets during World War I and continued production during World War II. As a result, this town boomed and continued to thrive up until 2009, when EPA deemed the city to be unlivable and evacuated the remaining population. Decades of mining had resulted in large toxic piles of debris, and the citizens were being poisoned every time they went outside. Some of this toxic waste was even used to fill the children's sandboxes on playgrounds. Even though mining had ceased in the 1970s, the groundwater was completely contaminated, and the risk of cave-ins added more danger. By the time these toxins were discovered, it was too late, as most of the population suffered the effects of lead poisoning. Adding to this, a tornado struck in 2008, leading most of the residents to leave immediately after. Despite the risk of poisoning and random cave-ins, some people still venture into the city to explore. It will be lifetimes before this once-loved town is able to be lived in again, and as a result, the rusty cars and standing buildings serve as a reminder of better times. Number 6. Dallol, Ethiopia. Known for the highest average temperatures of 35 degrees Celsius, this ghost town is located in the depression of a nearby volcano which last erupted in 1926. As a result of the thermal activity, this region is known for its acidic pools resembling those of Yellowstone, along with many temporary geysers and the salt cones that form on their edges. Potash was once mined here prior to World War I, until more easily accessible sources became available in the US and Germany. There was once a track that transported mined resources, but it was removed completely around 1929. And now the area is only reachable by camel caravan. All that remains are strange buildings built from bricks of salt, which only adds to this already alien landscape. Number 7. Helltown, Ohio. Settled in 1806, Boston Mills was the oldest village in the country and continued to thrive due to a railroad station built in 1880. This changed when in 1974 President Ford allowed it to be turned into a national park. Unfortunately, this led to plans to burn the town down to let nature take over. This legislation resulted in forced eviction of all residents against their will. Following this, the town remained standing, with no trespassing signs posted next to boarded-up houses. After decades of abandonment, urban legends and ghost stories began to surround this once-loved village. Some stories included a haunted school bus which would appear to be filled with ghosts of motionless children and the sounds of giggling. Another story is that the graveyard had trees that would move, causing visitors to become lost. There were rumors of cult activity and Satanists using the abandoned church, turning all the crosses upside down for evil rituals. The closed road, referred to as the End of the World Highway, were dangerous with steep inclines that made it appear that you were driving over a cliff as you reached the top. Some people claim that if you drove down this road, robed figures would surround your vehicle in an attempt to keep you from leaving. Another myth is that the village was never meant to be a national park, but that it was evacuated because of a chemical spill and a government cover-up. There may be evidence for this because people have actually become ill after visiting the area. It is hard to separate fact from fiction in what is now known as Helltown, but frightening stories are still told, and thrill seekers still venture into this area in the hopes of having their own chilling experience. Number 8. The Domes of Casa Grande, Arizona. Featured on the show Ghost Adventures, these strange structures were originally built in 1982 for a computer hardware business that never started. These strange UFO and caterpillar-shaped buildings were made by pouring concrete over large balloons and left to harden. Now crumbling and filled with graffiti, this tourist attraction has been ordered to be torn down as a safety hazard. Despite the risk of collapsing, these buildings are known as a site for satanic rituals and worship. One witness and participant in these rituals is ex-satanic priest Jose Gonzalez. Now a minister, he claims to have participated in dark rituals at this location, such as voluntary possession, self-mutilation, and blood drinking of animals and humans. Visitors have claimed to see evidence of these deeds in the form of satanic graffiti, altars, and dried blood. It's for this reason that Gonzalez wants these structures to be destroyed forever. Still standing but fenced off for now, most visitors fear entering the area, both for risks of the buildings coming down suddenly and because of the occult ties. Number 9. The SanZhi UFO Pods, Taiwan. The construction of this strange resort began in 1978 when developers had an idea for a futuristic resort that would appeal to tourists and American military on leave from nearby bases. Construction began terribly when there were several fatal car crashes and even a suicide involving employees on the site. Later, it was rumored that during the construction, a 17th century Dutch gravesite was discovered containing thousands of remains. This was supposedly covered up so that construction could continue. To add to the ill omens, a Chinese dragon sculpture was destroyed to make room for the resort. This seemingly doomed project was abandoned in 1980 due to the developers going bankrupt. Later in 1989, over $24 million were raised to finish the project, but after it was discovered that these UFO buildings were not structurally sound in the earthquake-prone region, the project was again abandoned and the buildings were torn down. Now another developer claims that they plan to build a new resort on the same spot, but many doubt it will succeed since this area is believed to be cursed. Number 10. Centralia, Pennsylvania. One of the most notorious ghost towns in the world is Centralia, which served as the inspiration for the video game Silent Hill and later the film of the same name. In 1856, the first coal mines were opened up, and in the 1860s, murders began taking place as a result of activists fighting for workers' rights. At its peak population and production, the town had 7 churches, 5 hotels, 27 saloons, 2 theaters, a bank, a post office, and 14 general stores. Following World War I, the mine production dwindled, and most of the working men had joined the military. As a result, most of the mines were closed. Despite this, mining continued up until the 1980s. In 1966, tragedy struck when an attempt was made to burn the landfill, but the fire ignited the maze of tunnels underneath the city. It's not uncommon to see a deer sticking out of the ground, dead by either starvation or the poisonous fumes. The government has continued to try and erase this city from history and from maps by removing all signs and indications that a town once stood there. When houses are torn down, they remove all evidence of a structure ever being there, blotting out the history. Despite all of this, there are still some residents that refuse to leave. Unfortunately, tourists don't seem to realize this and continue to vandalize, graffiti, and even take pieces of remaining buildings for souvenirs, chipping away at the souls of the current residents who remember what Centralia was before it was a flaming waste dump. And that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. I try and make a creepy list like this every weekend, so if you want to subscribe for that, you can. I'll leave a link down below to the sources, footage, and music used if you want to check that out, along with my social medias, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, which are all DeBerk321. But like I said, that's all for now. As always, until next time.